Hello, friend. I've got a question for you. What is your OCD story? Today, we're going to explore how to tell and retell this story so that it serves you. Welcome to the Free Me from OCD podcast. We're here to offer you educational resources, coaching, and community support to help you say yes to your life by saying no to OCD. I'm Dr. Vicki Rackner, your podcast host and OCD coach. I call on my experience as the mother of a son diagnosed with OCD when he was in college, surgeon and certified life coach to help you get in the driver's seat of your life. My vision is to help you move towards a future in which OCD is nothing more than the background noise of your full life. This information is intended as an adjunct and not a substitute for therapy. So let's dive in. You know from your own experience that OCD impacts lives in profound ways. No matter if you're an OCD warrior actively managing your own obsessions and compulsions, or you're an OCD champion supporting your OCD warrior, OCD can create drama in your life. Now, you've got a story in your head about OCD. The question I invite you to consider is this: is your story helping you, or is it keeping you stuck? So there are many elements that contribute to your story. First, there are the factual circumstances. These are the things that everyone can agree on that can be proven in a court of law. And here are some questions to uncover the facts of your OCD story. When did you first notice something different? What were the things that you first noticed? How did those changes originally impact your life? How did things evolve over the following weeks or months or even years? How did you come to be diagnosed with OCD? What treatments or interventions have you tried? What made things better and what made things worse? Did you share your diagnosis of OCD with others? What did they say and do in response? Was the response helpful or did it harm you? What do you miss most about your life before OCD? Your brain doesn't stop there. The answers to these questions are like pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. Now your brain wants to put the pieces together and create a picture from them. So it now tells the story about what all of these circumstances mean about you. So the brain creates meaning like, I've tried 3 things to make OCD better and they've not worked, so nothing will work. There's no hope for a better tomorrow. Now here's the interesting part. Your brain will tell you that the way you put the puzzle pieces together are the absolute truth. They're fact. If you try to challenge your brain, it will overwhelm you with compelling arguments to prove that, yes, this is true. Well, what if Edison said, I've tried 3 ways to make a light bulb and none of them worked. I may as well give up. He didn't, though, because he told a different story. Edison said, I now know 3 ways that are not going to work as I make a light bulb. So you have this story. I've tried things in the past. Nothing is going to work. But if you can even find one example of somebody who's tried things that haven't worked and then went on to find a solution, well, that says that your thought about what the future might hold is just a thought. It's not fact. So as you take a look at your story, ask yourself, could another thought be equally true? So what story are you telling yourself about OCD? Some people say things like, well, no one thinks that OCD is real, and maybe they're right. Or if people knew about OCD, they wouldn't want to be my friend. or they wouldn't want to date me or hire me. Well, are those things really true? Maybe, maybe not. You know that there are people with OCD who are out there making friends and employed and falling in love. So here's what I'd like to invite you to do. I recommend that you dictate or write down your OCD story on paper. So now you have some distance from it. You can take a look at it. Then review your story sentence by sentence. If the sentence communicates an observed reality, a fact, write C next to it for circumstance. If the sentence is just a thought you have about the circumstances, write T next to it, a thought. Now take a look at an individual thought. What other thoughts could you have that could be equally true? Which thought serves me better? Which thought puts me in a better position to be freed from OCD? And how would my life be different if I believed the alternative thought? Now, you've been practicing your thoughts for many, many years. So it may well be that you've got to practice your new thought before your brain says, okay, I'm on board with this alternative thought. So that's your own OCD story. You can revisit it and reinvent it so that it actually serves you. Now, you can also serve as an empathic witness to the OCD stories of others, especially your OCD warrior. So, you can find the right place and time to ask, in essence, what's it like being you? Now, it's so common to get caught up in the drama of OCD that we often forget about this piece. We sometimes forget to just sit down and have a conversation based in curiosity. How is it like to be you? What is your life like? So you want to choose the right place and time. For myself, I often find that my son and I have great conversations when we're on a car ride. And then I might just ask for permission to move in this direction. The conversation might go something like, we talk a lot about OCD. We sort of talk around it. But I've never really asked you, what's it like to live with these obsessions and compulsions? And then you can go through some of the same questions that you just posed to yourself to get your OCD story. So what you want to do is to be kind of like Oprah. You just want to be emotionally regulated. You don't want to fly off the handle. You just want to be able to stay calm when somebody else shares their experience, and get prepared for some surprising information. You might find yourself wanting to argue with the other person's story or defend yourself. This is not the time and place to do that. Right now, you are simply there to witness the other person's story. And of course, you would never ever use their story against them. This is also not the time or place to challenge their thoughts. Later, if this goes well, you can go to your loved one and say, I just want to thank you again for sharing your story. And, I've been thinking about something. I heard you say that you think you're going to be alone for the rest of your life because nobody would want to be with somebody who has OCD. And I'm just wondering, do you think that's really true? Let's think about Becca, who's happily married and has a child, even though she's been dealing with OCD since she was a young child. If that's true for her, might that be true for you too? as you're listening to your loved one's OCD story, if you find yourself reacting, just calm yourself down, put the focus back onto the person who's telling the OCD story. Now, this could trigger some work that you need to do offline for yourself. You might need to do your own thought work about what it means to be a good parent. This might be the first time in years you've had this kind of interaction. And I'll tell you, every single person who goes through this has sort of a wow moment. It is amazing how powerful just witnessing somebody else's story is without interruption. Just let them tell the story. I just thought of something. I was on faculty at the University of Washington School of Medicine, and I was teaching medical students. And they go through the process of doing a history and physical on patients. And when I arrived at the VA, the person who was coordinating this said that a patient who was assigned to a medical student had just gone into hospice care. And she didn't know how that would go. So the medical student went in to talk with him, and she came back in absolute tears. And I asked what happened. And this gentleman said that the reason that he had agreed to speak with a medical student was he wanted to finally tell his story in his way without interruption. And for whatever reason, that turned out to be just too challenging to this medical student, maybe because she had this idea of what she was supposed to be doing. So I personally went in there and received this person's story. Storytelling and story receiving is powerful. So you can consciously change your story about OCD. And, here are some questions that you might want to ask. What's the best and most optimistic future you can imagine? How will your life be different when that future unfolds? What will you be able to do then that you cannot do now? And as you create the image of this future, now you're in a better position to make that future a reality. So sometimes I ask people, if you had a magic wand and could create anything that you wanted, what would that one thing be? So stories are powerful. Rethink and retell your own story. Be willing to witness the stories of others. This is an incredibly powerful exercise. So I want to thank you again for your listening ear and your commitment to yourself and to the people you love. I have a request. Please leave a review below. It will help others like you find this podcast and maybe benefit from the ideas that you've been hearing. And if no one's told you yet today, I admire your courage. Managing OCD may be the hardest job I've ever taken on. So whether you're an OCD warrior or an OCD champion, you are not alone. There's hope for a better tomorrow. You've got this. I'll see you next time.